We will call to order the August 12th, 2024 meeting of Town Council. Can you please rise for the pledge, please? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One announcement, Community Day will take place on September 14th. Unfortunately, with the weather, we did have to cancel National Night Out. I do not believe at this time there is any rescheduling to take place. But Community Day will be a great celebration on September 14th. Are there any other announcements from anyone else on council? Okay. At this time, we will allow up to 5 minutes for public comment on agenda items only. If you do have a comment on agenda items, please come forward, state your name and address.
Ellen Wright, 9635 Old Kimball Road, Allison Park, PA 15101. I want to start by, I saw that the agenda from last time had been updated to reflect the town manager's report. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sure it's
I
something.
can get you one of yours, maybe. Nope, you don't circle that one.
So I'm concerned about the resolution, the tattoo parlor resolution that was passed last time. I don't really have strong feelings about tattoo parlors one way or another. I'm concerned about how the resolution doesn't line up with what happened at the planning commission. Specifically, on number 1, the planning commission on June 4th, unanimously did not recommend the tattoo piercing parlor zoning amendment. It failed 0-7. Mr. Corbo advised the commission to vote in opposition to the ordinance as presented. And then they did so. They failed at 0-7. And when you get down to the resolution that the council passed on July 22nd, where the star is on the paper that I gave you, it says, now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the town council of the town of McCandless, following review and recommendation by the town planning commission. The town planning commission unanimously did not recommend the ordinance as it was written. So I don't understand why the resolution just doesn't say the town planning commission did not recommend this and town council is going ahead and passing it anyway. And that way it's in line with what happened in planning commission, and town council is still doing what they want to do. So that's what my concern is with the tattoo parloring ordinance, that it's not in line with what happened at the planning commission.
Right, solicitor has a comment.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. The reason the word is recommendation is because it doesn't say recommended or did not recommend, because we don't know what they would do on this draft. And so this word recommendation is simply to reflect the fact that they made a recommendation. And council knows what that recommendation was prior to voting on this ordinance. So
Okay,
it's not meant in the positive or the negative. It's just that they made a recommendation.
Yes.
Okay.
so that when most people would read it and see a recommendation, they would think, like when you write a recommendation for somebody applying for a job, that it's a positive, as opposed to this is just a neutral recommendation comment.
But that's what they are. They're just a recommending body. They made a recommendation. It's consistent with the language. So it's hopefully everybody understands it now.
I still think it's confusing, but thank you for sharing.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments from the public on agenda items? Okay, continuing on, reports of committees, public safety, Mr. Joe.
I move to approve the following minutes submitted to each member.
Thank you. I skipped over that part. The minutes were presented. There is a motion to approve the minutes from July 22nd, 2024. There a second? Second, Nick. Any further discussion on the minutes? Can I have a vote? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we can go to reports and committees. Thank you.
Public safety, staff reports, chief's report.
Good evening, everybody. You all have my report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Middle of the summer, through vacations and such, the officers managed to continue their training. One training of note, I mean, there are more than one, but one I'd like to highlight is the SRT team, North Hills SRT, Rural Participating Agency. They are providing free training, and we sent a few officers whatever we could afford to that free active shooter training this past month. Apologies. And I probably should open with this. I want to thank anybody who might be watching that was planning on attending National Night Out last Tuesday evening. It was a rain out, as you all know, but there were a lot of folks that were planning to attend, and in my mind, I think it would have been a successful fourth one in a row. So thanks to everybody who might have planned it with us. I like to think it was a successful event. It would have been.
We have T-shirts for sale.
There you go.
T-shirts.
Perfect segue. For any McCandless residents or other folks that might want to support our K-9 program, we do have T-shirts and hoodies downstairs for sale that would support the K-9 program. So please. And other than that, I think it's kind of been business as usual for us. Do you folks have any questions for me about the report or anything else?
I'm just curious, how you see the transition with the school year coming with North Allegheny, with their police force, and I see you did some training exercise together, which is awesome, getting to know those folks there.
Yep.
But we're a week away from school.
Absolutely. Excited that we, I know who their chief is. I know him from former employer. We've worked together many, many years ago. I believe he's hiring a lot of qualified officers.
Great.
That are bringing a great breadth of experience with them. And I look forward to a lot more training where we can, I think their chief has even said that he plans on hosting some training and would welcome us to come up and participate. So I think hopefully it will be a great working relationship. We talked about some concerns. We'll see how they meet themselves out at the beginning of the school year. But I'm cautiously optimistic that everything will work well.
I have a question as well. Along those lines, what are the agreements between North Allegheny and McCandless with regards to how policing is going to take place?
So, as you all may be aware, the superintendent rolled it out where, I'm not necessarily a fan of this, but where they intend to try to handle anything like misdemeanor level and lower, or I'm sorry, traffic citation, non-traffic, and summary offenses. To give you folks an example, anything beyond that, they plan to call us. So we hope that we can educate them, get them on their feet, and that they will eventually handle more on their own. I like to think, like I said, with the officers they're hiring and the experience that they bring with them, they'll know how to handle themselves in the situations, and that hopefully they will handle some of
Chief,
those.
in that situation,
Mhm.
who is paying the bill for an officer's time to sit in front of a judge? Or transport a quote unquote juvenile prisoner?
So as long as we are, when they call us, and if we're in a situation where we have to handle it, obviously, unfortunately, the time, whether it's transporting somebody or the court time, will be borne by the town, unfortunately.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's not really a police force, we're just masquerading over there.
We're hoping that we can educate them and bring them up to speed. But I know that that's been their stance.
That's a huge concern of mine. Number one, our manpower is not where it needs to be, and number two, our budget, we're gonna face some challenges.
And you and I've discussed this.
Why,
Yeah.
this is not something that I don't think anybody, I can't speak for everybody here on council, but it's not something that I'm looking forward to. Because we could be in the same situation that we were in last year and not getting paid for you guys to be SRS.
Absolutely true. I would argue if I could. I know that we will endeavor to try to get them to handle as much as they possibly can. I promise you that much.
And I hope you don't take it as
Not at all.
as an assault,
Not at all.
because I'm not assailing you. I'm assailing the situation because I don't want the residents of McCandless to get hit twice. And that's what they're doing, getting hit twice. They're getting hit with a police force at North Allegheny, and then the town of McCandless and the residents here are gonna bear the brunt of overtime, which according to the contract isn't the actual time. There's more time there. Okay? They're gonna do it for transport and they're gonna do it in front of a judge. And if there's something serious enough that goes beyond the local district magistrate, you're talking about court time that could go into weeks.
And you mentioned it earlier, I'll just say this, transports are a concern to boot. When we have, maybe. Manpower gets stretched and we have to transport someone for maybe a mental health commitment or. Not likely a physical arrest at the schools, but anything's possible. That's an officer off the McCandless streets.
Is there anything with North Allegheny that constitutes dog searches in conjunction with the town of McCandless?
It's been years. Brian Madden would occasionally do it at their request. It was rare. Before that, years ago, when I was a detective, I would coordinate and bring area canines into. And it was very controlled by the district, but yes, there would be some, whether it was in the parking lot of Nash or maybe in the hallways of NAI. But they would always utilize our resources, the ones that I could get there.
Have you spoken with your brethren, meaning over at Franklin Park or northern area,
Mhm.
and how they're dealing with this new entity called the North Allegheny Police Department?
I've shared the concerns and they have the same. Although we have the majority of the schools, I believe we have 7 of the 11 schools.
We have the upper.
Yes. So absolutely.
We get something we need to monitor. Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, folks.
Fire Marshal's report for the month of July 2024, Jeff.
Good evening, everybody. It's really nothing to add to the report, just one quick comment. Fire prevention schedule is now set for the schools and preschools and daycares for this fall. So starting about mid-September through October, I'll be doing pretty much the majority of my work to be teaching the kids. So looking for another fun season of that. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add. If anybody has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Building permit report for the month of July 2024.
Building permit report was in your packets. If there's any questions, you can direct them to town manager.
Liaison reports, personnel to me. You have the minutes in your packet. There is a change in language that will be in front of us later. Anybody have any questions? Thank you.
Volunteer Firefighter Steering Committee, we had a meeting on the 23rd of July. And the packet, the minutes from that are in your packet.
Thank you. McCandless Franklin Park Ambulance Authority, Mr. Casey.
Originally, we had June minutes in the packet. We updated that, so July's came a little late. If anybody has any questions, I'm happy to entertain.
Is there any public comment on public safety? Mr. Hart.
Reports from the facilities management. Staff report from Mr. Brad. Would you like to give us any highlights?
I have nothing to add. Any questions?
I appreciated the pictures of some of the upcoming projects.
Yes.
that I sent.
Very helpful, thank
It's
you.
good to see, what the town's accomplishing and moving forward. So we thank you for that.
Absolutely.
You starting to look at budget this year?
Yes.
Uh,
Good.
Oh, I got it.
Good report. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Public work activity report is in your packet. Liaison reports. Environmental Advisory Committee, Mr. Giorgetti. Ad hoc Technology Committee.
There wasn't a meeting in July. We are gonna schedule a meeting either for late August or early September.
All right. Ad hoc Stormwater Management Committee, Mr. Singer.
There was a meeting, the minutes have not been prepared yet, but I'll give a brief highlight. We continue to work with the town administration, town engineering. To continue to address both our own in-house stormwater. Areas of concern as well as resident concerns. We highlighted areas for future consideration. And we've also substantially completed the entirety of our pollution reduction plan for this cycle. So we are ahead of schedule in most of our mandated stormwater, but we are continuing to work with resident complaints to continue to look forward and continue to grow the stormwater here in town of McCandless. If you have any questions, I will entertain them, but minutes will be available by the next month report meeting.
Any public comment on facilities management? Seeing none, we'll move it to Mr. Casey.
Reports of the Service Committee, liaison reports, MTSA, that's mine. Minutes are in your packet. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Portland Public Library,
Your meeting minutes are in your packet, but I also gave you guys we began a overview of the board that will show you some pretty phenomenal stats and really do a great job of revealing why Northwood is such a great asset, not only to the town of Kansas, but the overall North Hills.
Yeah, this is impressive, Mr. Georgette.
Are there any tickets left still to the children's gala?
Pardon?
Are there any tickets to the children's gala?
You know what? I think there might be a few, yes. When we met, there were, I think, 30 or 40 left.
Okay, so I'll give a shameless plug. There is a children's gala under construction Saturday, September 21st from 6 to 8 at the library. It's focused on kids having a good time.
how about the murder mysteries? Anything about it?
Did you get, if that's earlier than that, that's 9th and 10th, I think.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah.
I think I signed up for that.
It's a mystery.
It's a mystery. I know your wife's gonna murder you.
Oh, wow. Okay, next meeting. Okay, any public comments?
Lost control.
We'll rein it in here.
If there's no public comment on services, I'll turn it over to Mr. Arlo.
Okay, Planning and Zoning Committee, reports, staff reports, RJ. Tee it up. The Planning Director's report.
Hello. Sorry, we're a little flip-flop this month. You'll see me this meeting, not next meeting, because we do not have anything on the agenda coming from the Planning Commission this month. But we actually did at the Planning Commission. If you looked at the agenda, you would have seen the Eco Village was on there for discussion. Once we got the review letter back from Gateway, they decided they'd rather just take another month to work on revisions. Not really much to discuss that's material to the plan right now, just need to fix some of the technical comments for grading and stormwater design. So right now we're expecting them back in September. Of course, TBD on how that next round of revisions goes. The main thing that we did discuss at the Planning Commission is a rezoning request that we received from, it's a housing developer. They're operating under Grace Wexford LLC in this case. They have requested to rezone, and this will probably be easier to show you all on a map when we're doing the actual public hearing at the end of next month. But basically, if you're coming up Old Perry Highway, passing the Wexford Healthcare Center there, you keep going up past the turnoff into their back parking lot. There's a pretty heavily wooded area in between there. And when you get to the neighborhood that I think has Tomahawk Trail. Woodhaven Oaks, okay. Yeah, like Covered Wagon, those streets. So that there's 3 large parcels in that in between wooded area. 2 of them are already zoned RM, which is single family homes, duplexes and townhomes. And the one right in between them, and this is probably all told about 18 acres, 19 acres or so. About half of that property is currently zoned special district, which is the institutional campus uses, hospital, medical office, assembly, like, a theater or something like that. Church is one of them, but you don't have to be, I don't think, as an SD to have a church necessarily anymore. You can have them in the commercial, the mixed use commercial zones as well. So the developer has requested to rezone that parcel in the middle of the three from SD to RM to develop all three of them as a townhome community. The plan has not been reviewed for zoning compliance, which we don't typically do at a concept plan level, because there's no guarantee. The concept plan is just for illustrative purposes. But once something is rezoned, it could be developed by anybody for any of the permitted uses. And a concept plan is legally non-binding. So, looking at the concept plan in general, there are a few questions that we'd have if the rezoning was approved and they moved forward with the land development application, mostly right now with the length of the cul-de-sac they'd be proposing, which exceeds our maximum. And they asked a few questions of the developer about that, and they were contemplating a few different things to maybe not just have that be a single access street, but that's not something they're going to financially pursue until they know if they even have the approval to rezone the property in the first place. So the planning commission did take action on this one. We had some folks from the neighborhood show up that were just generally not thrilled with, the idea of that property being developed. We had some planning commissioners that were opposed just because they didn't really see a compelling reason for that development to go forward or because of neighborhood concerns. We had a couple planning commissioners that voted for, and their reasons being, this is not approval of a plan, this is approval or at least a recommendation of such, or the appropriateness of the district in general for that property. And their comments were that the SD parcel did not seem to be intended to be developed as an institutional property anytime soon. And given some of the uses that are more commercial in nature that could be allowed under SD, they felt that potentially a residential development on that parcel rather than an institutional one could perhaps have less impact on the neighborhood, at least looking at what is permitted, not necessarily what is expected. So that will be coming to you all for the public hearing. We're expecting the second meeting of September. I think that's the 23rd, I want to say. We'll be putting the ads out in the paper within the next couple weeks and sending the property owners, the adjacent property owners, the mailed notices for the date of that public hearing. So any questions? Happy to answer them.
It was like 19 acres.
All told, yeah, the actual parcel that they're requesting for the rezoning, I want to say it's somewhere between 8 and maybe a little lower than 8.
Okay.
But it's with all three parcels combined that they'd be looking at, it would be about 19.
The largest of the three parcels is the one.
I think it's pretty close to the one in the back. I would say it probably has a little bit more acreage than that one. The one in the front is definitely the smallest, but we're still probably talking in the scope of like 3-4 acres.
So everything is contingent on the changing of zoning.
For this developer. The other two parcels could be developed as single family duplex or townhome as currently zoned. Likelihood of that is a different discussion. The developer that's making this request has said that they don't really want to move forward unless it's all three.
Has any thought from the developer on a less dense, like more of a single family or moderate?
Yeah.
Would that be a consideration of this developer at all if the planning commission recommended not townhouses, but single family as a possibility?
I'm not under the impression that the dollars really add up because they just wouldn't be able to achieve quite as many units.
I didn't know if
The
they maybe
actual-
mentioned it at all, that it might.
No, I mean, it hadn't
Okay.
even been something that was really in play at any point that they
Okay.
had been asking questions. I mean, the number of units for the actual acres being proposed is really not that much in terms of density limits. I think even under the old code, which had really strict unit density limits, this one still would have flown. But the site itself has some really challenging topography, and I assume that's part of why they're proposing it the way that they are.
How many units would you estimate?
I think it was right over 60, like 63, 61, something
And
like
what
that.
access road?
it would just be coming off of Old Perry Highway. As in the concept plan, I mean, the cul-de-sac is too long in the concept plan unless we were to grant a modification. The standard for that is equal to or better result than the code. Don't know that I see a compelling reason for that at this time, but that's the developer's case to make if they get that far. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you. Liaison reports, planning commission, that's me. Due to travel, I was unable to attend virtually or in person. But the meeting minutes are in your packet. Zoning hearing board, Trish?
Thank you. We don't have the minutes. I'm not sure if just the complicated last two zoning meetings that we had might be
Yeah,
taking.
I'm sorry, I meant to
Yeah.
say something when I was up there, I apologize. There are a couple of comments that we had from our chairman, but the attachment he sent me did not come through. with
Okay.
them, So I'm just waiting for him to get those back to me. The tentative draft that they saw, they did approve. Once those edits are incorporated, then I can actually post them publicly, but if you all would like to see, a draft in the meantime now while I'm waiting for that, I could easily follow up with that.
Yeah, I think I would expect council to want to take some time to read through those minutes because there was a lot of facts presented, a lot of input from our residents and things like that. So I was impressed that our zoning hearing board was able to work through that amount. We were here late a couple nights.
And we also have the transcripts now.
Yes.
We recently got those, so if anyone would like to see a copy of those as well, happy to provide, just shouldn't be.
And I, as a personal note, I found the discussions and things like that, this is why local government is so important. Having these kind of discussions, and Mr. Wall was there, and I think he'd agree. This is why what we do is so important.
Absolutely.
So our next meeting will be August 28th.
My question to Ms. Susto. Was there any word coming back from the applicant or the appellant?
They have not submitted an appeal at this time.
Okay.
Okay, public comments on planning and zoning committee items, anybody? Barring none? Old
Alright.
business.
There is no old business, but new business, we do have a motion, was talked about previously from the personnel board. Just to tee this up a little bit, it's basics of slight change, that was not part of the last update, but was something necessary, dealing with experience on promotions. So their motion, somebody would like to make
I
that.
will make that motion. In the committee, or it's the liaison. Motion to approve the recommended language for the personnel board, which includes the requirement for a patrol officer to have 5 years experience with the McCandless Police Department before being permitted to take the sergeant's exam, and for a sergeant to have 5 years experience with the McCandless Police Department before being permitted to take the lieutenant's exam.
Second.
There's a motion and second on the table. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, there is availability for anyone with a non-agenda. If they'd like to step forward and make any comments, now is the time. Come on up. State your name and address. Please, sir.
John Harrison, 1473 Hedwig Drive, Allison Park. Over the weekend, we had the lovely posting in North Park with the you guys being proactive as always, and then the county finally deciding to pick up their ball and do whatever they want to do. The one question or recommendation as a judge of elections at 471. Can we please take down the map that is the proposed new map if it is not being enforced? Because the number of people and beings that were coming into a presidential election and the number of problems we have on election day, we need to make this as smooth as possible. And I can tell you after the primary election, there were a lot of people showing up thinking they were supposed to be someplace and they weren't. And it just adds more stress. And it makes a lot harder for those of us that are working that day, that we start at 6 a.m. and we don't get out of there until after 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So either if you're gonna keep the map up, put the old one back up and put preliminary or identify it somehow so that people aren't confused, because it really we know what the presidential election looked like in 2020. And at Memorial Park, that during that election, they went down the street all the way to the corner of Peebles and Peebles and Duncan. So when you have that many people, it just makes it, and if, especially, this is the thing I'm really concerned about, is when somebody goes and stands in line for an hour and they come up and say, I'm here to vote. And we go, unfortunately, you're in the wrong place. So can we please put something out there, put it on the website, do whatever to promote that, because ultimately it's all going to come back to you guys are going to be the ones feeling it. And unfortunately, Trish, you're one of the ones that's
I
going to
know.
feel it. Other ones are going to feel it. So let's be proactive on it and make everybody's lives a little bit easier. Jason, thank you for this weekend. I know you were with your family and doing things, but you're answering questions. The public appreciates it. Thank you.
And we'll continue to do so. Thank you for your comments. Any other public comments? Then at this time, we will adjourn to executive session to discuss personnel and legal matters. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion?
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion adjourned. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.